Mr. Speaker, at Richmond, below the boxing plant, both in terrible conditions. In the southern Grenadines, Mr. Speaker, in Canawan, the road, and these I know, leading from Mrs. Durley Snag in Grand Bay to the Alpheus Alec in Happy Hill. Canawan doesn't have a lot of roads, Mr. Speaker, but yet they managed to allow those to deteriorate to the point where it's hazardous to drive. The road from Philistine Williams in Grand Bay to the junction, again in terrible condition. And in Myro, Mr. Speaker, the road from Patrick Ford to Claude Alexander, I know that one. I know yesterday, last time, I don't remember talk about roads here in Myro, somebody stick it on the other side and ask if Myro have cars. Out of place. Yeah, you ask around. And the road from the clinic to the Catholic Church, that's the one I only laugh about in Myro. In Union Island, Mr. Speaker, the road from Bajan Corner in Clifton to the crossroad in Ashton. Yeah, Bajan. Tomatoes. So, Mr. Speaker, the Murray Village Road from Parkees to Lambie's residence, I know that one. All of these, Mr. Speaker, are in absolutely terrible conditions, and the minister responsible, which is the minister responsible for BRAXA, the Minister of Transport and Works, and of course the Minister of Finance, who is supposed to raise. Well, you have two learning resource centers, if I understand it. So your road's probably that good. So, Mr. Speaker, here we go. I would like, Mr. Speaker, so that I don't seem to be misrepresenting. I have some photographs here. I want to make them documents of the House, Mr. Speaker, where they show these facilities that I'm talking about. So the 20 Hill Road in Penistone.
20 Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the Camden Park Clinic. Yep. Here we go. In Sandy Bay, North Windward, we have all the roads that I spoke about. I'm not done yet. And here, and I give you a color copy so you can see them. The Canawan Wharf, Mr. Speaker, that I spoke about, is here.
Actually, let me see. Get a chance to see that one.
And the piece of road in Hamilton Becker, Mr. Speaker, this one. Look at this one. This, honestly. This is the one that I said that it should be condemned before somebody kill himself on that. You want a Coconut Range, you see? I am in the picture, so I know it. I've been down there, yeah. I do my research. I represent people. So there's that, Mr. Speaker. This is the one at Kanash. At Chapman's in North Central Wynwood. So, Mr. Speaker, the point that I wish to make here is that the government has little to show for all of its recklessness in spending. They simply don't represent people. I wish now to turn to another matter in the budget. At page 36 of his budget presentation, the minister spoke about a matter that is really, it's very current now, but is always a major matter of importance, and that is violence against women in our community. And let me just say, Mr. Speaker, my condolences go out to the family of the nurse who was shot and killed. At the secondary school here in Kingstown. Acts of those at that nature, Mr. Speaker, ought to galvanize the entire community. But the minister speaks in his budget address at page 36. In the top paragraph, he says that while there are individuals who have achieved high office, individual women such as
Page 36.
It's 36, yes, at the top of that page. I'm going to talk about something there. The Governor General, Her Excellency the Governor General and other persons, the OECS House of Assembly, Speaker, and so on. But he spoke about structural challenges confronting women of all rungs of the socio-economic ladder. I would just note that, Mr. Speaker, in its 2018 report, out of a full consultation, the IMF said that in St. Vincent, 2017, I believe, yes, that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the unemployment rate among women was 30%. It's higher than the national average of 25%, 25.6%. But the minister speaks of structural challenges confronting women in general. I would suggest, Mr. Speaker, that one of the biggest structural challenges in this society is the sexual abuse of women and the sexual exploitation of women by people in high office. By people in high office, by power disparity. This is a very serious matter, Mr. Speaker, that has not been given sufficient attention or specific attention in the past and certainly needs more attention going forward in the future. You will recall that not so long ago that a workshop of educators and healthcare professionals, or a healthcare professional, made a courageous and candid statement when she said, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines has a rape culture, and to combat it, we must talk about it. We cannot pretend it does not exist. Rape in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is on the rise. For the period January 2018 to January 2019, 47 new cases, she said, were found. And these were from all over the country. The statistics from the police show that in the years 2016, sex crimes in 2016 was 200 209 reported. In 2017, 228. In 2018, a little dip to 188, and in 2019, 230. These include sexual assaults, rape, incest, and indecent assault. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we rank among the worst countries in the world when it comes to rape and sexual assault. Last year, you'll recall in the paper, there were 3 separate incidents that occurred within a short space of time. And they were reported, and they shocked the conscience of the nation. 2 of them involved police officers. I think there was somebody mentioned it. The minister mentioned it in the House yesterday. 2 incidents involved police officers who's alleged as the offenders of young girls who were in their control. And in one incident, you will recall, young men and boys who gang raped a 15-year-old girl. It's not just a rape culture we have in this country, Mr. Speaker, it's a rape crisis. And such a national crisis requires everyone to work together to combat the problem. The permissiveness and the deafening silence and the willingness of many to sweep things under the rug must end. It's not a partisan political issue, Mr. Speaker. Everybody has a part to play, and government can't be a reluctant partner in this. And I think the time has come, Mr. Speaker, that even in offenses, we have a tendency to regard domestic violence offenses as a personal, a private matter for the family to deal with. And when the virtual complainant says, no, it's all right, we make it up, that's the end of the matter. I think we have to find ways now to pursue the matter even when the virtual complainant doesn't wish to go forward. So long as there's sufficient evidence, because it is a crime not against the person only, it's a crime against the state. I said,
Says once there's sufficient evidence.
Sufficient evidence. You still have to maintain the integrity of the criminal justice system. But the problem that we have, Mr. Speaker, is what we see at the courthouse is just the tip of the iceberg.
New York has it.
And something has to be done to break that cycle of violence and to change the attitudes of sexual violence, which is treated as though it's just sex. It is violation. And Mr. Speaker, I think it's a timely opportunity, sadly so, for us to discuss these matters candidly and for everybody to do their part. I'm sure you have, Minister. Mr. Speaker, I want to discuss something that the Minister mentioned in his budget address for the first time in quite some time at page 42. He speaks about the Otley Hall Marina. As you know, I have been beating that drum quite a bit recently, and justifiably so, Mr. Speaker. At page 42, the last paragraph, he says, the government has made a number of diligent efforts to optimize the potential of the Otley Hall Marina and shipyard, partnering with a variety of local and foreign investors over the years. Unfortunately, the results of those investors' stewardship have been suboptimal, and that's an understatement. However, we continue to hold the view that the marina and shipyard can maximize its economic and developmental impact through effective investment and management of an experienced and well-run private sector entity. As such, the government is currently in active discussion with such private sector entity, which has the means and the willingness to rehabilitate. I mean, why so long, Mr. Speaker? The truth of the matter is the Otley Hall Marina, to put it colloquially, they mash it up. It doesn't function anymore. I went there a couple of weeks ago just to see how things were, because I know that it's again under different management. But the minister's comments here, it seems to me, it's just paying lip service, really. It's an attempt to deflect any criticism I might raise again in this budget, because it's very vague. There's no allocation, and I can see it. If there's any, tell me, in the estimates as to say what is going to be required. And I asked the Prime Minister, about in the Parliament not so long ago, because I had heard that the dock had collapsed. And so I asked the Prime Minister what the state of the situation was and how much it would take to fix it. He said yes, that the dock had collapsed on September 17th, 2019, and that the damage was extensive. So, well, how much do you think it will cost? My follow-up question. I didn't hear it, but in terms of the cost, resources that it may be required to repair it, I don't know if the Prime Minister had mentioned it, and he said they haven't completed the assessment. The point is, and I asked if it's extensive, he said yes, it's extensive. The problem is, Mr. Speaker, here we have a facility. They say they're going to fix it, that you're looking for a private sector partner to do it. I mean, Mr. Speaker, if you have something of value, you go wait until they mash it up till they go and look for somebody. What are you going to get? What kind of bargain are you getting out of that? You're going to have to charge peppercorn rent. The company, Seferos, who used to rent it for 3 years, they fell into arrears of over $205,000 in the rent. The whole of 2017, they didn't pay rent, and government tolerated that. Even though the facility was rented, sublet, still, and collecting more rent there than was being charged by the government. So, what was Otley Hall? What happened to all that money? Was that a piggy bank? So all the workers, they're gone home. And the facility that had so much potential is left there, destroyed, rotting, rusting. It's sickening to see, Mr. Speaker. It really makes me angry to see that you can take a public facility that was so vilified but had so much potential, and for no explicable reason to allow it just to deteriorate and rot and rust. The only reason that was done, Mr. Speaker, that makes sense is to say it was never intended to succeed under this administration. Having beaten it up during opposition, they could not bear to see it succeed, to see it fly. Mr. Speaker, the young people of this country could be getting high-paid, skilled jobs at Otley Hall. I am told that if the facility is in full flight, you could employ between 18 and 100 people. in good paying jobs. Good jobs. Right now, it's nothing. The dry dock is broken. They're lucky that they didn't get sued. At the time it happened, the Endeavour domestic ferry was actually undocked there. When the bottom of the cradle, the dry dock broke and the thing was flooded. Suppose they had the propeller out, or they had been doing some welding on the side and the sides were open of the boat. You know how much damage there could have been? But, Mr. Speaker, the thing that is so egregious about this is that no matter who you speak with, and I will continue, at the risk of repeating myself in this House, Mr. Speaker, I will continue to speak about it because it is a facility. When it was designed, it was intended to be an important part of the diversification of the economy as banana was going down. That was the whole idea. It was supposed to play an important part in the economy, not just as a project off to the side. This is why I said that the minister pays lip service to it here, because it plays no role in his plans for the diversification of the economy. I told him that last year. And this year is the same thing. It's a facility, you fix it up and so on, but it plays no part in my economic plans for the future of the country. It's essentially what this says to me. And it can do a lot more. Employing 100 people in decent jobs, providing service to our ships here that now have to go all the way down to Trinidad and Grenada to put a coat of paint on the bottoms of the boats. Mr. Speaker, the only reason that Audley Hall is where it is now is because that is exactly what they wanted to happen. I can't find any other rational explanation. I can't find any other rational explanation. Because nobody seemed to care. The rent wasn't paid, who cares? The facility is broken, who cares? Well, I care because I know, Mr. Speaker, that could provide jobs for young people. It could be part of the training program of the technical college. So you send the children down there, let the young fellas go down there and learn how to do machine shopping. On the job training. You could even bring students in from neighboring countries to make it a part of a training facility because it's the only one like it in the Southern Caribbean. And everybody says, even now, in the state of disrepair that it's in, that it has still tremendous potential. And it breaks my heart, Mr. Speaker, to know that that is there. And for people who, we sit here and we get our paychecks at the end of the month, and you have young people who come out of college and they can't find a work. And they could have been trained there, or they could find employment there, and have skills that they could market somewhere else. That is how you help young people, Mr. Speaker. Yes, it's all well and good. The minister talked yesterday about the entrepreneurship, money from prime that they're going to do for young people. Well, that's good. We've been talking about something similar to in the NDP. We are the only, one and only, first political party, and myself as a political leader, to have a dialogue with young people on those particular matters of entrepreneurship. A couple years ago. Yes. I did that. I subjected myself, Mr. Speaker, to sit and chat with them. No preconditions, no questions was off limit, except that you had to be respectful and polite. That shows, yes. You did it? Yeah. But you see, Mr. Speaker, that is a matter of respect, you know. if you have the young people at heart and you respect them, it's not just a question of saying you're giving them something. It's a matter of you saying, I owe them this. That's my duty, it's my obligation. It's not a privilege. It's not a handout. It's not a political gimmick. That's the difference. Mm-hmm. Well, every rope has an end, and I think yours, the end is in your pocket now. So, Mr. Speaker, sadly, I must conclude that the Otley Hall Marina, it cannot succeed under this administration. And I would like to make these pictures also part of the record of the House, because it shows the dilapidation at the facility. Unfortunately, the pictures don't do justice to what is actually there. No, they don't. It's actually worse. Mm-hmm. I don't know why you don't find something constructive to say. Thank you. You had too much fun at the music fest, eh? Oh, no, you. Okay, I thought. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How much time do I have?
You have a lot of time.
Okay, good.
You haven't. It's now 11:45. You started at 9:30.
Yeah, okay.
You started at 9:30.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish now to address a matter that is within my portfolio as Shadow Minister in tourism. And it's a matter I've discussed a lot in this Honorable House. At page 10 and 11 of his budget address, the Minister speaks. I can't believe, Mr. Speaker, now just passing through here, I see at page 19, the Minister talking about decent work and job creation, and he didn't see Otley Hall as that at all in that part of his horizon. I said page 10 and 11, Mr. Speaker. The Minister talks about tourism here. And he talks about the 191 round-trip flights you have from Argyle to Canada and to New York, and the jets on the park on the runway, wingtip to wingtip during the Christmas season. But now, that's all well and good. But the truth is, Mr. Speaker, is that the industry is struggling. And we in St. Vincent would trail our neighbors very badly in this industry. I think the Minister acknowledged that in his own remarks. I wonder though, they talk about the flights in Cal, whether they're 75 and 95% booked up and so on. I remember I had asked a question in this Honorable House about a year ago maybe, about any financial assistance that is paid to Cal by government. And if I recall, it was over $1 million that had been owed. And I wonder what that situation is presently. And that's a question I'm sure the Minister could answer, the Minister of Tourism, when he gets up to make his presentation. Because if you're now having all the flights full, it should have been taken care of. So, the industry, Mr. Speaker, continues. We are fledgling. We are at the bottom in terms of our performance and scale the size of our industry in the OECS. Even though, Mr. Speaker, we have the best tourism, if you use the term product, to offer, because it is so varied, from southern Grenadines all the way up to the majestic hills in North Leeward and in Montreal. Beautiful, physically beautiful country, Mr. Speaker. Wonderful people. And we still continue to struggle. In 2018, St. Vincent and the Grenadines earned $281.8 million from tourism. The total visitor arrivals was 256,069, with cruise ship passengers accounting for 217,876 of those. And the stay-over visitors, there was 80,080, yacht visitors, 56,826, and excursionists, which is basically a dying category now, is 1,287. Even though the minister talked about yesterday about an uptick in arrivals, stayovers, I wonder how many of those are actually in the hotels. This is something that I think needs to be addressed in terms of the impact, because many of the people who travel, I know, from New York and Toronto, they are Vincentian nationals returning, and they go to stay with family members and friends rather than at hotels. I would think that a vast majority of them do that. So that's something that you have to factor into as to the economic impact of those flights on the country. You all stayed in hotels. Of course, you spend more money, which is what you want to do with tourists, to have them spend. And that's how we earn. So the remarkable thing is, Mr. Speaker, is that there has been, even with the growing numbers in some areas, up and down, but last couple of years up because of cruise tourism, and the damage that was done up north, a lot of the tours were diverted here. There has been a decline in the income from tourism from 2006, imagine this, as compared with 2018. So in 2006, we earned from tourism $305.8 million. And in 2018, we earned $281.8 million. It's 12 years later. A 7.8% decrease. In 2006, I always wonder about that year because it seemed to have been a peak year. It might have been after Hurricane Ivan. But in 2006, visitors fell from 97,000 in 2006, that's stay-over visitors, sorry, to 80,080 in 2018. That's a decline of 17.8%. Yacht passengers declined from 93,638 in 2006 to 56,826 in 2018. That's a 39.3% decline for yacht visitors between 2006 and now, 2018. Yes. Well, excursionists went from 9,236 in 2006, small category, to 1,287 in 2018, a decline of 86.1%. The only category that has seen increases cruise from 106,474 in 2006 to 217,876 in 2018. That was a 104% increase. And of course, Mr. Speaker, we speculate, but I think it's reasonable to say that The damage that was done by Hurricanes Maria and Irma in 2017 benefited our cruise tourism here. The challenge is, how do we keep them? And that is what we have to do. So the money, Mr. Speaker, even with a greater number, in 2006, that we earned as an economy was 7.8%. There was a decline of 7.8% by 2018. We are at the bottom of the table when compared to our neighbors in the OECS. Grenada in 2018 earned $437.8 million from tourism. St. Kitts in 2018 earned $520.7 million. Antigua, not 2017, 2018, sorry. Antigua in 2018 earned $1.8 billion. With a B. And St. Lucia, $2.5 billion. We are above Dominica, who of course in 2018 was recovering from hurricane damage. Why is this so, Mr. Speaker? We talk about the insufficient and inefficient marketing of tourism. The Tourism Authority is responsible for marketing of tourism. Yet we have seen over the years how that authority has been starved of funding. So that the Tourism Authority, for example, Mr. Speaker, between 2012 and 2018, the most that the Tourism Authority has received in terms of the funds that were voted in the estimates was about 67% of what was voted. This is in 2012. When $13 million was allocated to the Tourism Authority and it received $8.7 million. That's 67.3%. In 2013, $13 million again was allocated. This time, I think they're saying they gave them too much the year before. $3.8 million was actually spent, or actual expenditure by the Tourism Authority. That's 29.4% of what was allocated in the estimates. In 2014, $12 million was budgeted, 5.5 million or 45.8% was allocated, was actually spent. 2015, $12 million, again, 4 million was spent, 33%. 2016, $15 million voted, $6.2 million actually spent. In 2017, $20 million voted, $7.5 million. 37.5%. I mean, 2018, $17 million, $11 million spent. So we see, Mr. Speaker, when we talk about the big lie that I spoke of in the debate, we see the illustration when you go into the details and looking at these transfers. I don't expect it every year, get 100%. But you mean to tell me if you budget 13 million in 1 year, you can't say that you had to do a little over because things were good? You spend $14, $15 million that year. Never once you went over. Always under. And in one case, 29% of what was budgeted was actually transferred to the spent by the Tourism Authority. And Brax's situation isn't much better. So, this is the institution that has the primary responsibility for the marketing of tourism. If you transfer $4 million in 2015 to the Tourism Authority, when you don't pay for light and salaries and so on, especially for the CEO, you don't have much left for marketing? The minister? I feel your pain, man. It's pathetic, this kind of performance. This is an industry, a sector of the economy that is supposed to be driving growth and earning foreign exchange for the country. I mean, we can go about and do all we can about the heritage sites and so on and improve them, and we must do that. But if you don't market effectively, the people are going to come and see it. And then they can go and become a part of the marketing well because they had a good time. Recently, Mr. Speaker, I was out at the technical college and I spoke with some young people who were doing a course in heritage site maintenance and development. They were excited about how we can develop our heritage sites and make them part of our tourism package. And I said, yeah, that's the right track to be on. And it's good that they, as young students, were engaged in studying this. Because ultimately, if somebody, especially a cruise tourist, who goes back on board and eats and drinks, the only way you can get them to spend some money is if you can show them something that they can get on board and it interests them. So, the development of the heritage site is good to help to promote the tours. And so, the taxi drivers, like my friend Kenlin, who here was voted best taxi driver in St. Vincent last year. Is that so? Tell me, wonderful. But the truth of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, the taxi drivers, when you look at the reports of the Florida Tourism Association, that the study that's done, they get good reviews for the quality of the service, the hospitality of the drivers. But they need a little help, something to go and show. I know in Beckway, sometimes I see the tours that they go on, the roads they have to get over, to go to the sites are in terrible condition, but when they get there, the sites themselves are so run down. The one down at Point Hamilton, down at, yes, we call it Point Hill. Since 1972, I believe that was built during the time when Sir James was in the short-lived government as Premier. And not much has been done to it since. And that is why it's a beautiful site. But these are things, Mr. Speaker, that they may be small, but I suspect that a lot of what we have to do to develop and promote tourism is incremental, a lot of small things to get them right. But the major thing is the marketing. And if you're not giving the marketing, the agency that is charged with marketing our tourism the money to do it, even though it's a small amount, but you're not giving them the full amount of the small amount, then you're just spinning top in mud and hoping for the best. It takes action. It takes people applying themselves to the task of marketing our tourism to make it work. And I'd be interested to see what happens this year. And I really do wish it to succeed, Mr. Speaker, particularly in the yachting. We, in the yachting visitors, you know, that's the one that we've lost the most in. Because in 2006 we had 93,600 yachting visitors. And in 2015 2015, that was 47,000. In 2018, there's an uptick, and there's 56,000. But we still have a long way to go to get back to that high point. You know, once you get there, you shouldn't be losing so much, Mr. Speaker. And that is essentially what has been happening. So when you hear about the flights and so on coming in at the airport, and the jets are parked on the runway wingtip to wingtip, that doesn't tell the whole story. That doesn't tell a small part of the story. Yes. We have to look and see what is happening. Assist the stakeholders. Geez, I mean, the tourism authorities, almost everything. I hear the taxi drivers complaining they're charging them now to go on the wharf. It's everything you're charging the taxi drivers for. Well, you think they're making a mint? It's true. And no small amount too, $500. But Mr. Speaker, tourism is important because it is an industry that we can develop rapidly and that we can get precious foreign exchange from. But it has to be done right, you know, so that we can have backward linkages with the rest of the economy through agriculture, with the craft vendors. You have wonderful young people who are learning to be chefs. Let them come and use as much of our local products as possible in the food that we offer so that we cut down on the purchasing of expensive items from overseas. Mr. Speaker, also, we have to ensure that, particularly for the yachting industry, that the security aspect is taken care of, because that is what we suffered from quite a bit in the early part of the last decade. One story goes out of some incident on the boat, especially if it's found that the police didn't do much about it, and that tarnishes our reputation. And it travels very fast. There's something called a security net. And if you are a cruiser on a yacht and you get some report, all you have to do is just simply keep on sailing. And we lose. But we lose in another way too, Mr. Speaker, because even if they come and they don't feel secure enough to leave their boat and go ashore and go to a restaurant or go hang out at a bar or go visit some of the sites, then you still don't capitalize fully on the potential of that visitor coming here, whether by yacht. Well, by yacht, that's what we're talking about. All right? Mr. Speaker, there's one thing that, not one thing, but at least I would say I agree with the minister. Huh? You talk yet? The Minister of Finance.
He's responding to the budgetary debate.
No, the Minister of Finance.
So if he says the minister, there's only one minister he could be responding
Mr. Speaker, he rightly identifies the lack of rooms, sufficient rooms on the mainland, as a problem, especially for the functioning, the proper functioning of the Argyle International Airport. So, when the Minister of Tourism, this is who used to talk about, I hear him, he used to come down to the regatta, and he said, oh, and next year when the airport is open, you're going to have 3 times as many people coming in. Well, sometimes they said 3 times, sometimes you never. Well, I'm telling you, you did. Because the point is, Mr. Speaker, he said, oh, this is just, it's like you build it and they will come. Field of dreams. And what happens, Mr. Speaker? The minister quite well, he says, listen, if you bring a jet, one of them big BA or Virgin jets come here and land in Naga, with people who are not going to stay with their friends and relatives, where are we going to put them? And that is a challenge. It is a challenge. Eh? I always said that we should build hotels. But here is the challenge, Mr. Speaker. What does the minister plan to do with it? He said he's going to borrow $50 million from Taiwan and he's going to build a hotel down at Mount Win. First of all, $50 million US cannot build a hotel that Marriott is going to be interested in. You know that. So I've asked the question, well, where are you getting the rest from? Not a 250-room hotel. They say they're going to build a 93-room hotel. If that were built today, that would still be the largest hotel in St. Vincent. Not a small thing. With $10 million US. You're joking? That's for the driveway. So where the rest of the money coming from? My concern there was that the National Insurance Service was being pulled into this, or was leaping into it, not as a lender, but as an investor. And the risk to the NIS from such a venture, I think, is too great. Because if you look right now and you see the occupancy rate in the hotels throughout the year, you see it's under 50%. And so it would be a very risky matter. But I understand the government don't have the money, so they say they're going to build these things. And they're talking brave. And the minister, I asked him a question, what's happening with the Black Sands project? And he stood in this house and answered to my question with a straight face and tell me that the villas down there, they have 5 rooms and 5 of them are open by June. When people advise you like that, tell them, say, man, who you think I am, a fool? Don't come and give me that answer in the house. No, you don't take what people tell you when they're telling you nonsense. Come on, that's how you govern? That is how you govern? If somebody garbage in, garbage out, that's what that is. Yeah? No, man. They're treating you like a mushroom. The point of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, come and say, listen, they're having some difficulty. You know, what is happening with the project? So long we're hearing about Buckingham Bay and all the machinations and how we're going to open by Christmas, and if it don't open, we're going to be disappointed. And it's still belly flop. 3 years. And this is a facility that was built with Argyle as a twin. And they say, now you have a large 700-room facility. You have Argyle coming in, you have a place people can go and stay. Where is it now? I mean, this is a small matter. This is not a small matter. There are so many people who could have been working. There are so many suppliers who were left holding the bag. Vinlec, they say, owe $7 million, and they're gone. And we are in a situation, Mr. Speaker, where the facility doesn't look likely to open anytime soon, because they can't even get the matter of the title to be able to sell it or lease it to somebody sorted. And the Prime Minister, in answer to my question in this Honorable House, spoke about the difficulty because the building is on land that the people don't own. They say they pay for it, so they are equitable owners, but they don't have a title deed. And who builds in those circumstances, Mr. Speaker? That's people who don't value the money. Easy come, easy go. And you want to tell me that they did not know, the planning department, if you try to put up a shack anywhere, they come in and say, let me see a deed. But they allow this facility, using pensioners' money from the UK as an investment, to build. And now, the chickens have come home to roost. So how is the government going to resolve it? It's a private matter, but the government is getting involved. I'm told that they're going to acquire it and get an indemnity from the equitable holder, just in case that a problem arises somewhere down the road. This is all so unnecessary if you follow sound principles in dealing with these matters in the first place. And it's not a private matter, because a lot of concessions were given to this facility. It cost us as well. How did we get to this point? That's maladministration, Mr. Speaker. So, I hope the Minister of Tourism will then find out a little bit more about what is happening with the Black Sands project. I would love to see it succeed. I supported it when you went there, raised my reservations about it, but I said, great, if it could succeed, fine. Because we do need to have the rooms here in the mainland. We do need to have jobs for people. 25% unemployment rate in this country is no joke. And 46% for young people, 30% for women. The hardship that people tell me about that they're confronting their lives daily is no joke. Their bread isn't butter on three sides. They have to struggle to make ends meet. Mr. Speaker, I'm told that there are new projects that are coming. The Minister talked about them in his budget presentation.